I just hate that person, or it's a non-story. Every time. And every time I bring these stories up, people that don't like or predisposed not to like that political figure, whoever that political figure might be, those people will applaud you and rah-rah you and, yeah, you go get him, Murphy. And if you find yourself caught up in deciding what you cover and what you talk about based on those two factions, you're lost. My goal is truth. That's all. That's all. My goal is speaking truth to power. My goal is to entertain you, first and foremost. I have to do that before I do anything else. I entertain you first, and then information and education and conversation and debate and robust ideas about where we're going as a nation and social and political commentary, all of that come later. I am as open as anyone on this radio station and anyone that I know on talk radio about taking telephone calls and offering you an opportunity to opine. That doesn't mean that we're unlimited on time and I have unlimited space for you to fill. I don't. All of that to say, I felt the story was legitimate enough to make sure you were aware of it, and I've made you aware of it. For some, it is of concern because the basics of the story were that Andy created a GoFundMe page in the aftermath of an awful tragedy involving he and his wife losing a child, Lincoln, and they were going to set up a memorial place at a cemetery for other children to benefit from that, and they raised almost $25,000 to do so, and that memorial garden never came to be. And so the guy that's accused of the hit piece, Phil Williams, was asking, well, where's the money? So there's that. But I am open to that criticism, and I get it. I understand it, and I understand that it's the nature of the job, and I appreciate you listening. And I promise you, my goal, I don't pretend that at any point, at no point do I pretend that I'm not going to tick you off at some point or another, right? It's going to happen. But know when that happens that I promise you that I am a champion for truth as I see it, and we're going to get crossways on certain issues, and that's okay. That's what America is all about. That's what talk radio is all about. That's what the free speech that we enjoy on a day-to-day basis in this country is all about, and God forbid we ever lose it. God forbid we're ever told what we can and cannot talk about. And I'd finally say this. Let's not become the left with regard to being woke and suggesting that just because you have a different position on something that it's inappropriate that we talk about that thing. And I'm not accusing Andy of that. That would be the Andy that wrote me the letter. I'm just throwing it out there. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. We'd love to hear from you today. There's new developments involving Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, and it involves our next guest on the show. Following his odd behavior, one state representative, Todd Warner, has now called on him to resign immediately. And as I mentioned moments ago, he says the 79-year-old lieutenant governor is a predator. Not only have Tennessee Republicans now become the laughingstock of the nation, the bottom line is this. Randy McNally is a predator, he said. Warner claimed McNally groomed a 17-year-old minor by commenting relentlessly on nude photos through his official social media account. Here's one of the things that's not making play, and Warner's bringing it out, and we'll talk with him moments from now about it. It's not that Randy McNally, well, forget the individual's sex for a moment. It's not that Randy McNally was engaging on social media with a 20-year-old. I mean, forget that he's a male, okay? Male, female, whatever. He was engaging on social media, according to the individual, with a 17-year-old. With a 17-year-old. And that's a problem. 12:22, more to come on that. A lot going on Tennessee politic front, a lot going on in Washington, D.C. as well. What is Joe Biden going to do about the fact that we had a drone shot down this week? The Dow Jones Industrial Average is in the tank. Meantime, Joe Biden speaking at a Friends of Ireland luncheon as if the world is not on fire. We'll discuss it all. It's 1222 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, friends, it's Matt Murphy for Savory Spice. 2 locations, incredible spices and flavors available for you at Savory Spice. We get in the kitchen, we enjoy cooking, and we like to use the best and freshest ingredients. Whether it's fresh veggies from the fresh market or meats from our local butcher and whatnot, we use those. We up our game as we get older to better, serve our palates and to better serve our families. Why aren't you upping your spice game as well? It's time to do that. And they have an incredible selection of delicious spices at Savory Spice. I mentioned the taco seasoning that the wife and I utilized a few days ago. We had the Sunday pot roast mixture a couple of weeks ago. I mean, we're using different spices from Savory Spice on a day-to-day basis. I am absolutely fascinated with the alderwood smoked sea salt. I think it adds an incredible amount of flavor. I know that it's specifically for meat flavoring, but I love it on everything. I put it on my eggs in the morning. It's Savory Spice. 2 locations. I mentioned that right off the square in Franklin. You'll find them right next to Gray's Drugstore. You can also find them at Ellendale Market in Nashville, conveniently located near you. Up that food game by upping your spice game with Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you on this St. Patty's Day. You can check us out on the Super Talk TV. Up and running. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. I had no idea you weren't. I had no idea you weren't in there. I just started rolling. I heard the music.
I was about to rupture. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. You're drinking a lot of water now. You're going to the bathroom more. You're getting older. That's going to make you go to the bathroom more.
No. I'm coming out of the bathroom less.
Well, okay. That's a way to put it. Bell K behind the glass and preparing for his week-long vacation?
Yeah.
Huh. You have you been public about where you're going? I mean, not for the full week, but
You mean on the radio?
oh yeah. I mean,
No,
I mean you've been public with me.
yeah, I'm going to Dallas.
Oh well, that's I didn't want to like out you and he's going to Dallas. I don't know why that would. I don't know why that would cause some sort of issue. But
Well, I probably shouldn't have said that. I mean, there's probably somebody else who wants to shoot me when I get off the plane.
I doubt that. Well, yeah. Just don't drive down Elm. Is it too soon? Have I told my Texas Book Depository story to you?
Yes.
Have I told it to the listening audience? It's pretty good. About the people in the trees.
I don't think you told it to the audience. I can't remember, though.
So I was at the Texas Book Depository. We went out there to, I love history. I love living history, and you see it. And there's an incredible, on the 6th floor, or the 5th or 6th floor, there's an incredible, well, I guess it is the 6th floor because that's where Oswald was. They have recreated the sniper's nest, and they recreate where the gun was found, and they go over the history of Kennedy and his election, and then obviously his visit to Texas, and people in Texas didn't like him very much. And then they go over the history of the day. I mean, November 22nd, 1963, when John F. Kennedy, our president of the United States, was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas on Elm Street. And, there's the X on the side, on the road, on the spot in the road where the third shot, the fatal shot, believed by most, ended John Kennedy's life. So I mentioned they recreated the sniper's nest so you can see the view, and they give you an opportunity to walk up to a window right adjacent to the window that he was at. They partition off the exact window, but you can walk right next to the next window, and you can look out, and you can kind of see the viewpoint, the vantage point that Oswald would have had. And so we're waiting our turn. There's naturally a little bit of a line because people want to look out and they want to view it. And we overheard a conversation between a husband and a wife. And this was probably, 10 years ago. So about 50 years after this happened, after Kennedy was shot. And the husband says, and this is like July, the husband says, well, this is impossible. And the wife says, what do you mean? There's no way that Oswald could have shot through all of these trees. And there's this pause, and the woman hits him on the arm and says, it was 50 years ago. The trees weren't there, you dope. And the guy went, oh, yeah. And I couldn't help myself, and I looked at E, and I said, plus it was November. No leaves on the trees either. Anyway, that's my Texas School Book Depository story.
Everything has always been as I know it to be.
Right. There's another great version of that story. The Masters is coming up, and there's a famous hole. I mean, all of the holes are famous at Augusta National, but there's a famous hole, the 13th, which is a par 5, and it doglegs to the left. And an older guy, I think it was Byron Nelson, was playing with a bunch of young golfers. And they were laying up, basically. They were cutting it. They weren't trying to cut the corner and go in kind of over the trees, which is a very dangerous shot. And Byron Nelson said, young man, when I was your age, I would have gone right over those trees, and I would have landed, and I would have had a 5-iron to the green, and I would have been putting for eagle. And so, of course, the young bucks pull their drivers, and they try it, and they just smash it right into the trees, and they're out of bounds. And they kind of look at Byron Nelson and say, that was some shot. And he goes, yeah, the trees were about 40 feet shorter then.
That's brilliant.
It's 12:31. Looking forward to our conversation with Representative Warner. That's coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for The Safe House. You know, Mark at The Safe House wants you to be as safe as possible, and his contribution to that safety in your home and your safety of your family is to offer you the best safes at the best price in the business for 30 years now. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary this year. And for 30 years, no one has sold safes. No one has known safes like The Safe House. They're the only locally owned safe specialty company in Nashville and in Middle Tennessee. Frankly, when companies are talking about putting their safes on sale, off sale, on sale, off sale, Mark doesn't do all of that. He sells his safes at the lowest possible price all the time. Yes, he charges for delivery on that safe. That is a big and heavy object. It costs money to deliver that object. Anybody telling you that they're doing it for free is lying to you. They're placing the charge somewhere else. Mark knows that. I know that. You know that. And now you understand the deal, right? He's going to separate the cost of the safe and the cost of safe delivery. The Safe House has set the standard that other safe companies simply try to mimic or imitate, and they cannot keep up. So when it's time to buy a safe, like a Fort Knox or a Browning or a Liberty or any of the other brands that you might have your eye on, go to the Safe House and see the best selection in the Southeast and maybe even in the United States of America. Right on 4th Avenue South, it's the Safe House online at NashvilleSafeHouse.com. NashvilleSafeHouse.com. It is 12:36, almost 12:37. Happy St. Patrick's Day. You'll see the message if you're watching on Supertalk TV right behind me. I'm not kidding. I mean that. It's the last day for these things, and that's the only good thing that company makes.
Just wait till Mac gets back, and we'll send him out for a couple.
We can send him out. He's gone to Whataburger for us. Surely he can go there, right? I mean, we didn't get in trouble for that. So if you're watching on the Supertalk TV side of things, you'll see I post a daily message up there, and today's message is very much about St. Patrick's Day. It's a very selfish one. Speaking of selfish messages, I was in the midst of sending this directly to Red, but I'm going to just do it online. Red, I hope you're listening still. Red says, LOL, really? Now Phil Williams is Woodward and Bernstein? I hope you have the mental ability to understand the point I was trying to make, Red. I think that you do, and I like you a lot. but let me try it one more time. Woodward and Bernstein are leftist hacks. That doesn't mean that they were wrong about the Watergate break-in and the subsequent cover-up by Richard Nixon. I don't know if Phil Williams is wrong or right. And he could very well be a leftist hack. That doesn't mean necessarily that the story has validity or doesn't have validity. I hope that makes sense to you. It's the best way I can explain it. All right. So in an ongoing saga involving the lieutenant governor, we've been talking about it for the better part of a week. Randy McNally has kind of holed up, and I think he's trying to weather the storm by eliminating himself from social media. He has, quote-unquote, paused his social media. He's he's blown up his Instagram account completely, and I guess paused any interaction on other social media accounts that he has. There's at least one individual in the General Assembly that's called on his resignation. Representative Todd Warner of Chapel Hill was the lone signature on a statement that referred to McNally as a predator and called for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to investigate his social media activity. Representative Todd Warner joins us on the Matt Murphy Hotline this afternoon. Todd, good afternoon. Thanks for being on with us. I'm glad to meet you via the telephone. How are you, sir?
Good, Matt. And it's an honor to be on with you, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Well, let's get right into it. Tell me your motivation in writing this open letter.
Well, Matt, it boils down to what's right. What values do Tennesseans share? I waited a week before doing it, hoping that the lieutenant governor would step down, praying that leadership would step up and call for his resignation. No one done it. I talked to a few other members, and I thought I had a couple going with me. They got cold feet there at the end, and this is what's right, Matt. What's going on here is terribly wrong. It does not represent what Tennessee is, and it's time for the lieutenant governor to step down.
What about let's get into the meat and potatoes of what your statement says, and then I'll ask you about the lack of other individuals coming forward in just a moment. You refer to the lieutenant governor as a predator. Talk to us about why you would go so far as to call him that.
Oh, just by what the young man said. I mean, we're talking about an individual here that was under the age of 18 when these conversations started. And God knows we have not seen the private messages yet. And it's my understanding, and it's highly likable, that records are going to be subpoenaed here. Why? I mean, when you read and you listen to the young man's statement, you can. I mean, anybody with common sense can tell that he was grooming this young man. I mean, am I wrong? What's your opinion on it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he was grooming him or not. I don't know what it was inside. I don't know Randy McNally as well as some in the General Assembly, so I don't pretend to know what was going through his head. I do know that it concerns me greatly when our 79-year-old lieutenant governor is having this level of private communication with individuals that he does not know on social media platforms, responding to photographs that are nearly nude. That is very, very concerning to me.
It's very inappropriate, and maybe I used the wrong word. Maybe he wasn't grooming, but it is not right for this to be happening. A man of his position, with his authority, using his government account to comment on these individuals and how they're dressed. I mean, what have we gotten to in this state? Why ain't more people speaking up and standing up and calling on this man to step down?
I've spoken to a number.
To me, I will never stand for those values. Tennesseans don't stand for those values, and it's wrong.
I've spoken to a number of your colleagues, and they regularly refer to Randy McNally's past and how much he has done for the state of Tennessee as a way to offer him a certain level of grace in this situation. And obviously, he's not being accused thus far of any criminal activity. And to my knowledge, he's not being accused of any strictly unethical behavior in terms of the General Assembly. So why do you think your colleagues are holding back, and why are you, Representative Warner, willing to push forward in calling for that resignation?
Well, I'd say the reason they're holding back, the man's been there 40 years, and he's done a lot of great things for the state. I'm not going to take that away. And up until this point, I've had the greatest respect for this man. But this crossed the line, and my colleagues should call for him to step down if they want to do what's right for the state. And this is wrong, and it disturbs me that more people hadn't come forward.
You make a comment in the statement. I'm just going to read it to you. I love reading you to you, Todd. But you say, I call on Randy McNally to step down from his position as lieutenant governor. Additionally, I'm calling on the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation to open a probe into this incident to examine possible violations of Tennessee criminal law relating to the sexual exploitation of a minor. Have you had any communication with TBI, or have they reached out to you as of yet?
I have not. But let me say this, Matt. The TBI sets up stings to catch people doing this exact same thing. So why in the world would we defend this guy for doing this? There's nothing right about that, and it bothers me. I know the Speaker Sexton has come out and he condones, or he's in favor, or he approves of what McNally has done. People, and I urge Speaker Sexton to get out in the state and see what Tennesseans are saying about this. The ungodly amount of emails, phone calls, text messages, voicemails that have come since I put the call for the resignation out yesterday. It's been astronomical, and I just think I just feel that Speaker Sexton's out of touch with Tennesseans. And he definitely don't share the values I share, nor does he share the value of Tennesseans, or he wouldn't be doing this.
Why do you believe that you're alone in this? You mentioned that you thought you might have had other colleagues sign on to this open letter with you. Why do you believe that's not been the case? Specifically, your call for him to resign as lieutenant governor.
I mean, I'd say probably I'd say leadership's probably put a damper on some of those folks. I heard one statement from a colleague that, let the Senate fight their battle out over there. We'll fight our battles out over here. But this ain't about that, Matt. This is about what's doing right for Tennesseans. It's about protecting children, and let's move on. We have become the laughing stock of this nation. And we sit here and continue to allow this to go on. It's got to come to a head. Speaker McNally needs to resign, and let's move on.
You operate in the House of Representatives, obviously, and the lieutenant governor is selected. Let me clarify something before I set this question up. You have called in your open letter for the lieutenant governor to resign, not just as lieutenant governor, but also his Senate position. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think that would be in the best interest of Tennesseans.
But that aside, I've heard from several members of the House that have told me that they don't feel like it's appropriate for them to speak out on this because the senators select their lieutenant governor and the Senate will handle it. How do you respond to that?
Well, and that might be their thoughts, and I respect their thoughts. But I think if you look back in history just a few years ago, you can see where McNally reached across the aisle and made several comments. This ain't about House or Senate to me. This is about what's right for Tennesseans.
Do you believe? Sorry to interrupt you. Representative Todd Warner is our guest. He is openly calling for the lieutenant governor of the state of Tennessee to resign his post based on revelations that he's in regular communication with an individual starting at the age of 17, according to that individual, and leading to the age of 20. Do you believe that the reaction to this would be different if this were a young girl?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah. If this was someone's daughter, especially a member of the House or Senate's daughter, I think it would be, I think we would have got a whole lot, different reaction.
Are you fearful of reprisal from any of your colleagues? I've heard that, obviously the Senate and the House have to work together, and these things kind of carry over on occasion, much like in sporting events. I'm a big NASCAR fan, and I know if somebody gets bumped in one race, they can expect some sort of reprisal in a future race time.
Retaliation is what it's called, I think. It's what they call it in NASCAR.
Are you a little worried that there might be some retaliation coming your way for speaking out?
I've already heard about it. I've heard a little, I've heard a few threats, but hey, let's, play your game, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, Todd Warner is going to do what's best for Tennessee. That's all that matters to me. And if they got issues with what I done what I thought was right. I done what the values that I share and my family share. I would never want to see anyone prey on a young child or juvenile or whatnot. It was wrong, and that's where I stand. And if people got to take issue with it, hey, take issue with it.
You are obviously versed enough in this situation to feel comfortable writing the letter, Todd. Do you fear that more is to come, more private messages or more messages from Instagram to this individual or to other individuals that might further embarrass the state? Is that your fear?
It's not my fear. It's what I know.
So you're saying more's coming out on this?
More's coming out, and I'm not going to say anything more than that.
Representative, thank you for being on with us today, speaking your mind and offering us a glimpse into why you felt the need to write this open letter. Are you hopeful that more colleagues will come out and stand in your call?
Yes, I do. I hope more come out, and let's get this put behind us. Let's move on, and let's get Tennessee headed back in the right direction. And yes, I hope they do.
One final thought: Do you believe that this scandal maybe I mean is it being conversed about in the halls of the General Assembly in the same way that it's being talked about in Tennessee and around the United States? And is it taking away from some of the good work being done in the General Assembly this session?
It very well could be. It's definitely being discussed up there. Before I come with the letter calling for Lieutenant Governor's resignation, I spoke with several different members. No one told me that he should stay. Everyone I spoke to asked about the situation, thought he should resign. And I was hoping, like I say, to have a few more to sign on and get behind it. But in the end, they didn't. But not one single person up there has told me that he should stay.
And one other thought on this, on the front of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, because your suggestion is that if this individual was underage, or if there's a suggestion that some individuals are less than the age of majority in the state of Tennessee, that needs to be investigated. Do you feel compelled to make the call to the TBI and to see how that investigation would open up, or are you willing to do that?
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, I'm willing to see how it opens up. Sit back and see. Let's see what happens here. Surely, there's already been enough information put forward that the TBI would take an initiative to look into this. I can't see how they wouldn't. I guess another problem that kind of bothers me with this situation is, if nothing happened, if nothing was wrong, why scrub the account? Why delete the account if you've done nothing wrong?
Well, I said early in the week, initially the Lieutenant Governor's office just made the account private. And I said the day after, you can't use an account for a public official, an official account for a public servant, and then turn it private, because the people that have already followed you and you followed them have access to the Lieutenant Governor in such a way that others don't, and it would never stand legal muster. And, of course, a day later, they completely deleted the account altogether. It seems to me that the Lieutenant Governor's office was fear. This is just my speculation on it, Todd. You asked the question, and I'll answer it. It feels like the Lieutenant Governor's office did not want individuals investigating this case to have access to his account so that they could go through some of his interactions on the account. That's the way that it feels to me. Right.
I just found it very interesting at this point, after he'd come forth and said that he didn't have any regrets on about what he done. So I just thought that was very interesting that the account is now deleted.
Keep me up to date on the TBI angle. If you hear anything from the TBI, Todd, and any other developments on the case, you have an open line here on the Murphy Show, okay?
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you. There's Representative Todd Warner. Once again, consume that for what it's worth. There are some defending Randy McNally, saying that this is a private matter and that it does not need to be dredged out publicly. Representative Todd Warner has taken it up a notch. a Republican from Chapel Hill, calling on him to resign immediately, not just as lieutenant governor, but also from the Senate, saying that the 79-year-old lieutenant governor was a, quote, predator. Not only have Tennessee Republicans now become the laughingstock of the nation, the bottom line is this: Randy McNally is a predator, Warner said in the statement. And I could share some of the rest of the statement with you if you so desire. Your thoughts on this? 615-737-9986. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, so the Dr. Gill Center is open for you and ready to help solve some of those back issues that you might have. And it's not just back issues nowadays. I know that oftentimes when we think of chiropractic care, you think about your back, your spine, and naturally so, because that's what they do best. But they also do so much more with regard to your neck, your shoulders, anywhere that a part of your body moves, they can assist you. And at the Dr. Gill Center, they've been helping people get back to a pain-free life without the need for pills and certainly not surgery for well over 30 years now. And they are a chiropractic center. There's no doubt about that. But they also have state-of-the-art industry-leading equipment like their Class 5 lasers, their red light therapy, their spinal decompression. I am a patient on the spinal decompression side, and I am a personal testimony to how this can alleviate your pain. It pinpoints inflammation in the body, reduces swelling, and accelerates healing. So regardless of where your pain is, contact the Dr. Gill Center. There's never a better time because you've got that $23 special rocking. $23 gets you a complete examination, x-ray, and review of findings. 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. I need to tell you about Tennessee Men's Clinic. No, I want to tell you about Tennessee Men's Clinic. My apologies for that short little break there. I was having an in-depth conversation with my next guest. Right now, I want to tell you that if you're feeling sluggish, guys, if you're feeling out of sorts, if you don't feel like you have the energy that you once had and you're in your mid-40s, or if you're like me, you're almost 50 years old, maybe you're thinking that's just the way that things go, Matt. It does not have to be that way. Go and get your blood work done with Tennessee Men's Clinic. It costs you less than $100. They'll not only check your prostate, your PSA test, which will give you some early indicators as to whether or not you have prostate issues, but there's a number of other tests they take to include testosterone. And it has been scientifically shown that over the last 40 years, men's testosterone levels are going down as a group. And if yours is going down, you'll feel that individually with a lack of energy, a lack of motivation, a lack of drive. And sometimes this manifests itself in bedroom activities. And that's what gets a lot of attention. But I want to focus your attention on energy levels and feeling yourself again. So go to Tennessee Men's Clinic at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or two fine locations to serve. You can call the number and find out where to go in Nashville or now in Cool Springs. 615-208-9090, 208-9090 for Tennessee Men's Clinic. All right, here we are. Here we go. I told you it would be a loaded day. You know, we have some of those days where, you know, we're all sitting on the front porch, sipping mint juleps and just chilling out, talking about what's going on in the world. And some days where we have a lot of company coming over. And that on those days, you have to clean up, you know, you have to get your room straightened up, and we have to make ourselves, you know, appropriate for company. And that's one of these days. We've already had Todd Warner on. Todd is the lone representative, happens to be a Republican. I'm a little bit surprised that more Democrats didn't sign on to the letter. Maybe he didn't want them to sign on to the letter calling for the resignation of Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally because of the, you know, some of the, I wouldn't say allegations, because Randy McNally has said that all of what we found was true. He's not being accused of criminal activity or ethical activity, but there's some moral issues going on there. And Todd Warner wants him to resign as a result. And he spoke with us. If you missed any of that conversation, you can find it up and running on podcast and in a variety of different ways, to include SuperTalk TV. That said, we've got Cameron Sexton coming up at 2:30 this afternoon, our weekly visit with my good friend and legal expert Jay St. Clair at 2 o'clock. And right now in the 1 o'clock hour, we welcome back to the show Senator Heidi Campbell, who joins us in studio on this St. Patrick's Day, looking fetching in her green. Hey, Heidi, get up. Yeah, get real. You got to get real close.
Top of the morning.
How are you?
Top of the day. Good.
You didn't bring me a Shamrock Shake. You didn't see my sign.
I'm just trying not to get pinched.
You know, I said early on in my life, you know what? I'll wear what I want to on St. Patrick's Day, and I'll do the whole green thing. But if people start pinching me, they're going to get smacked. They're going to get slugged.
Yeah.
I get it.
In an open carry state, that carries a different meaning.
Well,
right?
That's true. That's true. You can get more than smacked, right? How are things going in the legislative process? By the way, you're my favorite Democrat. You know that, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure how much that's saying, but I'll take it.
How are things going in the General Assembly?
It is never dull. It is
That's
never,
true.
ever dull. It's just, I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen, we've been on Saturday Night Live 2 weeks in a row. It's, you know, it's crazy up there.
What, I guess let's start with that elephant in the room. Lieutenant Governor is selected by the Senate. I'm guessing, considering that you're a part of the minority in the Senate, that Randy McNally would not have been your selection to be Lieutenant Governor. However, he is. What should the Senate do with this?
You know, I have to say, Lieutenant Governor McNally does an excellent job of keeping the trains running on time, and he's a good lieutenant governor. As far as what he's done personally, that is none of my business. I don't know what it is or, you know, what there is to it. I do think it's unfortunate that we are passing the most strong anti-LGBTQ laws in the country. And, you know, obviously there are some issues there, you know, amongst, I would say not just him. My colleague, Representative Tory Harris, who is openly gay in the House, has indicated that he knows of people in the House on the Republican side who are as well, and don't talk about it. And I think in this day and age, to have that be a front and center issue is just such a distraction from the stuff that we need to be doing. And you and I have talked about this. We need to be, fixing our potholes, making sure people have jobs. The kitchen table issues. And instead, we're always talking about this crazy stuff.
So you mentioned the LGBTQ, and I do think it takes away from a real a positive and good discussion about the specifics of that bill that was passed and signed by the governor. And I imagine you and I are going to disagree on it, but that's why you're here, in part. What is so damaging about the bill as it was written and as it was signed? Because, and I'll give you where I am on it, it's my understanding, I believe it's being mischaracterized, much in the same way that the quote-unquote Don't Say Gay bill in Florida was mischaracterized as a ban on drag shows. I've seen the headlines nationwide. It's unfortunate that they don't do the due diligence to make sure that they're accurately portraying what's going on. What is so damaging to this piece of legislation to you?
So the legislation language was taken specifically from the obscenity clause that, was a case that the Supreme Court passed to define obscenity. It talks about prurient behavior. And what it does is it describes prurient behavior relative to drag shows, but that's already illegal. So it's redundant. If that behavior is illegal already, then this is redundant and there shouldn't be a need for the legislation. So it really is just messaging legislation in as much as that's the case. And I think it's meant to have a chilling effect on the LGBTQ community, and, drag or cross-dressing, whatever you want to call it, goes back to the beginning of time. Surely you don't have a problem with people in Shakespeare, for example.
Well, no, I played Queen Gertrude in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, so I most certainly don't.
I would love to see that.
have an issue with that because my professor of theater at West Georgia decided she wanted to cross-dress the show for some reason. So, but I look at cross-dressing, and I understand that we're very loosely talking about drag shows, but I've been to sexually explicit drag shows that I would not want young people to go to. And I would think that there's common ground for us there, right? That the types of shows that are sexual in nature, that may or may not involve disrobing, that certainly involve levels of sexual innuendo that most parents would have issue with younger people going to. I mean, do you feel like that this is just not an issue in Tennessee?
Yeah, I do feel like it's just not an issue. I mean, were there people at that drag show that you went to who have brought young children?
But drag performers are in Tennessee. It happened last September in Chattanooga. They are promoting shows as family-friendly, all-ages shows that aren't.
So I think that there were a couple of pieces of disinformation being circulated on social media and on certain media outlets about that. I don't think that's really the case. I mean, I've spent a lot of time talking to people who are in the drag world, and they really do say that they're very careful about that. So somebody got a hold of a couple of strange videos that weren't even from Tennessee of somebody with kids, and it was inappropriate. And that
if it's not, and I guess this is where I'm at, and I don't want to interrupt you, but if it's not really happening, if it's a solution in search of a problem, and if we already have language that would prevent it, then what's the harm in making a clear statement that it is impermissible and illegal to have younger children at these types of performances?
Because this is what happens when you pass these sorts of bills, and this was the point of it, and you start to take people's freedoms away. And this happened also with the abortion bill, is that people start to question whether or not they can do certain things. And doctors, in the case of the abortion bill, question whether or not they can help women in certain situations where their lives might be threatened. And, drag show people or just people who would be doing a play and cross-dressing because of this bill are now questioning whether or not they can do it. And they're not likely to do it because it's too much trouble, because they don't want to put themselves in a position where they might actually be breaking the law.
Well, shouldn't we err on the side of protecting children, though?
No children have been harmed by this. What do you think about cheerleaders?
So, I mean, is it in your mindset, is it a parent and child decision to take my kid to the Hustler Club?
I mean,
is there a point where we say as a society, you have to reach a certain age before you're exposed to certain sexually explicit material?
But those laws are already there. I mean, but
then why weren't they chilling drag shows before?
They are. You and I disagree about that. You seem to think that there's prurient drag show behavior going on in front of children, and I'm just telling you it isn't.
Well, then there's no harm in the legislation, is my point.
No,
if it's not going on.
There is harm in the legislation because the legislation has gotten enough press that everybody's scared. And, for example...
Come on, Heidi. Who's not presenting a drag show that was going to present a drag show?
I'm telling you. For example, the Pride Parade in Knoxville and in Nashville are looking at not doing their parades.
Why not?
This year, because they're worried.
If there's no sexually explicit material within their parade, it's perfectly permissible to parade and to enjoy yourselves.
But the language is vague to them. They don't,
Have you ever been to a Pride Parade?
Yes, I have.
Have you seen sexually explicit events at Pride Parades?
No.
I have.
Well, okay. I guess you want Pride Parades canceled.
No, I don't. What I want is if there are young people involved in that watching a parade, I want something in my society that would prevent a parent from having to explain why a man has his private parts out on full display on a city street, which is what I saw in New York City about 10 years ago at their Pride Parade. Do we want that in Tennessee?
I mean, I haven't seen that in Tennessee. And
do you want that in Tennessee?
I don't want that in Tennessee,
okay.
But let me just say, the Ronald Reagan Republican Party, and I think I said this to you last time I was there, that was about fiscal responsibility, civility, hard work, and stay the hell out of my bedroom.
Well, sure.
And, this is getting into people's private lives in a way that, we're taking people's freedoms away right and left in this state.
Sometimes I feel like we're reading a different law. Because I read the law and I've read it completely differently than you're describing it. And that's neither here nor there. It's why I have you on, Heidi, because it's an interesting, different perspective.
Well, the point is to prevent people from doing drag shows and pride parades, and it sounds like you would rather not have a pride parade.
No, I am fully in favor of individuals who wish to apply for a parade permit and parade and proclaim their pride in their sexuality to be able to do so pursuant to the obscenity laws that exist in the state of Tennessee. And if there are children present, there are certain things, there are certain expectations about things that they will not do and things that they will not present in public spaces. And as you've said, those have been on the books for a long, long time. Pride parades have gone on without a hitch. And I would expect that after a lot of caterwauling, that the Pride Parade will go on again as it has gone on. June? I think they're in June, right? That's Gay Pride Month. I'm certain that they'll go on without a hitch.
Well, you and I can make a bet about that because I'm not sure that it will. I think that there's enough concern about it that might not happen, and I think that would be really sad.
I do too, because I think that the organizers of the event would be cutting off their nose to spite their face, and they would be doing so in an attempt to try to mischaracterize the law as written, as I've read it. And I would encourage everybody to go to the law and read it for yourselves and decide for yourselves where you are on this.
Keep in mind that these bills come from ALEC. This isn't a Tennessee-generated bill. These bills are being, attempted in other southern states, and it's part of the Southern strategy. And this is really about chilling people's sense of freedom. It's about controlling people.
Well, if this is about chilling people out with regard to drag and freedom of expression and, freedom to publicly proclaim you are who you are, it is the worst Southern strategy in the history of Southern strategies, in the history of the world, because no other time, tell me another time in human history, Heidi, I'm being very serious, where people could not feel more comfortable and celebrated to be who they are publicly. It's ridiculous to suggest that there's never been another time in American history where people could not be more open about their own personal
Well, I'm
sexuality.
glad you said American, and I don't disagree with you about that, but I will say that we are headed in the opposite direction right now. You know, we're telling librarians what books they can have. We're making teachers take certain books out of their curricula because they're talking about starfish having sex. I mean, you know, it's a time when we're actually seeing book bans. We're seeing bans on people's freedom of choice, freedom to be who they are. We took away women's freedom of choice in this state wholesale with the trigger ban.
Well, unless you're the little woman that's about to be aborted. Now they have a little more freedoms.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily agree with that when we're talking about the fact that women could die and are being put in situations where they might die because they can't get good health care.
Well, and I am all in favor of getting a woman all the health care needs that she has, and I'm all in favor of protecting doctors, especially in these rare but important circumstances where a doctor has to make a decision with his patient regarding abortion. Let's talk about
her.
Or her.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say his? Yeah, I did. My bad, Heidi. You correct me when you need to on the pronouns. It's 119. Heidi Campbell, always a spirited conversation. Enjoy having her in. We'll talk about the abortion bill that's in front of the General Assembly in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, it's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Heidi Campbell in with us, discussing a number of pieces of legislation in front of the General Assembly and just generally lightening my day, making me feel so good about. I mean, I like, and I hope that you guys do too, understand this is this conversation that we have with Heidi, and I want to have as many of them as she's willing to do. It's all about earnest and honest debate and discussion and differences of opinion on very important issues to the state of Tennessee. I admit that I am not as learned on the abortion bill as perhaps I should be, but you're here to educate me on it. Apparently, there was concern in the medical community after the trigger law went into effect and abortion was effectively illegalized in the state of Tennessee after Dobbs, that doctors, they felt like there was a lot of gray areas that prevented them from providing appropriate medical care for fear of prosecution. Is that a fair way to present this?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be even clearer about it, just to say that there are absolutely no exceptions. There's an affirmative defense, so that if you were protecting the life of a mother and had to remove a fetus for some reason, that you could possibly have an affirmative defense to defend yourself in court. But an affirmative defense is not an exception, because, that puts a doctor in a position where they have to make a decision to throw themselves into that legal, rigmarole to do it. And doctors, don't want to do that. And so they have a duty. The Hippocratic Oath says, that they have to take care of their patients, do no harm. And then, the state is telling them that they absolutely, no matter what, cannot perform an abortion, even if a woman is going to die, even if the fetus is already dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are all kinds of instances where that needs to be a medical intervention.
And I know that you and I could have a broader conversation about the state's role in these types of decisions, but in this more narrow conversation, where are you on the legislation? Do you feel like it is, at this point, clarifying some of those issues for the medical community?
So the legislation keeps changing, and so amendments get put on it, and there's still negotiation going on. I think that the forced birth group that call themselves Right to Life, I won't call them that, because they're really about forced birth. I mean, I'm all about life. It's just that's a language thing. They want no exceptions, and they've finally given a little bit on saying that they would let us have medical exceptions in cases of rape and incest, but they say that the woman has to prove that she was raped or prove that there was incest, and that puts women in an impossible situation. I mean, it almost puts women in some of the language that was flying around. The woman would be criminalized if it was found that she erroneously reported that.
Well, I mean, it's my understanding that the language would require just basic documentation that would already exist, right? Like if a person is raped, then there would exist a paper trail, one would presume. One would, and maybe I'm wrong, but one would presume that the first knowledge of an alleged rape would not occur at the time that a woman was coming in for an abortion.
No, that's not the case. They would actually have to prove that they've been raped, and if it was shown that they
that's what I'm saying is that I don't. Are you suggesting that there are cases where a woman would walk into a doctor's office, ask for an abortion, and at that time that's the first public indication that there was a rape when she says it there?
Well, no, that's certainly not the case in this bill at all. But I will say, women who've been raped go through various different situations where they're
it's
able
horrible.
to.
I mean,
and
I don't
they're
want to
not
get past
always
that.
able to immediately come out and
Right,
deal
I
with
understand.
that, right? So, once again, this is such a complicated issue that the government should not be involved with it. This should be something that is being decided between a doctor and a patient.
Well, and on the other side of the aisle, there are individuals and there are groups, lobbying organizations that I would characterize as pro-abortion as opposed to pro-choice, right? I mean, but I'm using language like you're using language, right? I'm trying to be fair to the other side because some would say it's pro-choice. It's a woman's right to choose her own medical decisions, and other people say that it has become something of a pro-abortion group when maybe not in Tennessee, but in some states, there are arguments that there should be a right to abortion up until the point of birth.
So I've yet to meet an individual. I have never met an individual who's pro-abortion. I mean, I don't know of anybody who's pro-abortion. It's always a difficult situation. And I have to say, if we really want to deal with...
I don't know of anybody that's pro-forced birth either. I would just point that out.
Well, I just...
But at the time that you become pregnant, there's a third life involved. There are people that are pro-unborn rights. That's how they... I mean, I understand we're dealing in semantics at this point, but there's a lot of back and forth that can be had on that front.
Yes, and certainly it's like the peace in the Middle East. I mean, it's a conflicted
it is
situation.
the most controversial political issue of our time.
It is one of them for sure. Yeah, definitely.
But in the spirit of the clarification that's happening now, and I get it, it's not the battle that Heidi Campbell wants to fight. You want to fight the broader battle of the pro-choice argument. Do you feel like we'll get to a good place this session or a better place?
I really, really don't know. I feel like it's 50-50 right now. I think that there is, I think it goes back and forth on a regular basis as to whether or not the votes are there. And I don't know that we're going to get there because we're getting towards the end of session. Committees are starting to shut down. So.
All right. In a moment, we've got a quick timeout to take. And in a moment, let's talk about Metro Council. You want to?
Let's do it.
I'm excited about this, too, because Heidi, I have a premonition that I will finally get to the meat and potatoes of the argument against reduction of the council because I've been begging for this. I've said, well, I hear a lot of folks saying it's retribution, it's revenge, and they're probably right. But is it better government or worse government? Heidi's going to speak to that in just a moment. It's 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What? Excuse me. By the way, it's
Y'all
the Matt
need to
Murphy
save
Show.
the conversation for the radio.
That's why we're getting in trouble, Heidi. You and I were getting in trouble from Bell K. It's 1:35, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Jay St. Clair coming up at 2 o'clock. And Jay's going to give us some insight on social media platforms and what the law does and does not say about what can be public, what can be private. I made the case that Randy McNally's office was making a mistake when he had a public Instagram account that was obviously his official account. He had many official goings-on and ribbon cuttings and all of that sort of thing on the account. You can't do that and then make it private. You can either not have an account or you can have an account, but you can't have an account and then make your account private. And now he doesn't have an account because they've eliminated it. That's at 2 o'clock. At 2:35, Cameron Sexton. Right now, it's Heidi Campbell. She is a sitting state senator, and I would like to say she's a friend of the show, even though we might disagree on certain things.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get beat up on the super text line for having you on, but that's okay. I still believe in robust discourse, debate, and even disagreement in a friendly fashion, and I think you do too.
You and me both. I think that we've got to stop fighting with each other and start talking to each other.
Amen. Toward that end, let's talk about the General Assembly and the Metro Council, who seem to be doing a lot of fighting and talking about one another as opposed to talking to one another. So the backstory is, and I wasn't here prior to this, but I imagine that there were a lot of dust-ups. I've been told by some in the General Assembly that the RNC decision on the part of the Metro Council was the proverbial straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. We'll find out if you agree with that in a moment. But the backstory is that the Metro Council declined to send a letter to the Republican National Committee saying, hey, we want to be considered a city, a candidate for your convention in 2024, which cut Nashville out of the running. It eventually went to Milwaukee. Based on that, and I've had enough in the General Assembly, you talk to them every day, that began a process by which they have now passed and the governor has now signed a council reduction act that applies statewide, but it would really only apply to Nashville because Nashville is the only city that has over 20 councilors, and it would reduce the Metro Council in half. It would cut it in half.
Right.
Give me your overall thoughts on all of this.
So, whether or not you think the council needs to be reduced, the thing is the state shouldn't be doing it. I understand why people are upset. I think that there's been a lot of miscommunication. I think the council decision, had a lot to do with security and the availability of hotel rooms. I do think the genesis of it was probably that RNC convention decision. But, this is an extreme, what I would call hostile takeover that's going on in Nashville right now. We are the economic engine for the state. We generate over 50% of the state's revenue, and it's working really well. And so, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, I'm not a representative of the state, but were I would say, well, Heidi, the state's kind of doing their part. Let me give you an example. They offered up $500 million for a new multi-use convention center that would include football, and it would be an indoor facility, and that's going to benefit Nashville, benefit the ability to draw these big events that continues to generate the money, and that benefits everybody. So they're doing their part, and it seemed it was okay until it came time for the Republicans to get a little something that involved the Republicans, and the council kind of cut them out of that.
And I don't think that was really the intent. I don't think it's been interpreted as a tit for tat, but I don't think that's the case. But regardless, it's not worth looking back. The mom in me says, let's figure out how to get along going forward.
You said something interesting in the beginning of your remarks. You said, well, we could talk about whether or not it would be good to reduce the council. Do you think that's good? Do you think the council, is it possible that we could get better government for the city of Nashville and Davidson County with a smaller council?
I've heard people say that on the council that they think that would be good. We did put it up for a vote in the city of Nashville and voted against it. Inevitably, it has to be a decision that's made by local government. and the people who live here. And that's the problem. I mean, I don't think anybody in the state legislature would want somebody coming to their city or their town and making those decisions for them. And this should be a local decision. So we see a lot of intervention in our local decisions with the airport authority, the convention center, the sports authority. This is kind of a war on Nashville. And
Well,
that's
Davidson,
just one piece of it.
You tell me. You've been here a lot longer than me, but the Davidson County piece of this, it's kind of the outlier, right? It's different than every other county. The metro government,
in as much as it's a consolidated government, yes,
right? And
that's right.
and that exists at the pleasure of the General Assembly, doesn't it?
Well, actually, it was consolidated in I think the 50s, and it was
through an act of the General Assembly.
Sure. I mean, the state has the power.
So they have the authority.
They have the authority.
But it's not right.
Just because you have it doesn't mean you should use it.
Yeah, just because you can doesn't
That's
mean you should.
That's right.
Are you hopeful that good? I mean, what hope do you have that good could come out of this? I understand they're hoping for a restraining order against the law taking effect immediately. I don't know how effective that will be. I don't know if you have any insight into it.
So Nashville has just been through so much when it comes to elections over the past several years. I mean, we've had so much chaos. I just ran a congressional campaign that was the fallout of the redistricting of Nashville into 3 congressional districts. And there were people who were voting in the wrong district. It was an absolute mess. And I think we need a break from the chaos of having things, maps redrawn and things redistricted during elections. We also had, a roiling, series of mayoral elections for various reasons. So, I mean, we could use a break from that because, we really need to kind of get our house in order. We've got a lot of issues that we need to solve in Nashville in general, and this just makes things harder.
You mentioned the mayor's office. Were you surprised that John Cooper announced that he wasn't running again?
A little bit, yeah. I wasn't expecting that.
That opens up a space for someone to step in and lead. There are suggestions. I mean, we've heard some names that have popped up. Jeff Yarborough, I think. Am I saying his name right? By the way,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yarborough, who won't call me back. Tell Jeff I won't bite him. He's too busy. He's too busy for me. And some others, I think Freddie O'Connell has announced that he's going to throw his hat in the ring. Is there anybody that's caught your eye so far, or are you just kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude?
I feel like we need somebody who understands the dynamics with the state legislature deeply, because that's much more complicated than people realize, and somebody who has leadership experience and team-building experience. And, this could not be a more important time for Nashville. I think we really need somebody who can lead through a pretty complicated situation right now. And so far, I'm not seeing that person.
Describe to me, touch on again the relationship between Tennessee and Nashville. It's very interesting, and I'm new, and I really hesitate until I feel fully immersed, right? It's been 15 months, but I wouldn't suggest that I have any concept of all of the ins and outs of this relationship. But obviously Nashville is blue and surrounded by a red state, and there's nothing wrong with either of those things. But the dynamic of the amount of money that Nashville does generate through a variety of different things, tourism obviously being the biggest, creates a dynamic of there has to be a certain level of friendliness between state government and local government, but there's also a great tension between those two.
Yeah, there is. And I think it's important that, my colleague Mark Pody and I have spent a lot of time, because he actually is now representing part of Nashville. And we have spent a lot of time modeling what it's like to work together, because we both feel that it's very important.
I can think of no two more different people than you and Senator Mark Pody.
There you go. And I love him. I absolutely love him. He and I see things very differently, but, we need to be able to work together. And he and I have tried to model that with meetings and, just working together on legislation and various things. So,
what is the most important issue facing Nashville right now? You mentioned these more important dynamics?
Affordability. I think a lot of people can't afford to live here, and
I'm one of them.
out.
I'm in Mount Juliet.
Yeah.
I mean, we were watching. My wife and I were watching this. She watches these house hunter shows. She's obsessed with them, and I admit that I have become obsessed with them too. I mean, and especially House Hunters International. But I digress. And there was one in Nashville the other day, and we were like, I was rewinding because I wanted to figure out what neighborhood they were in because they don't really tell you. And it was this little bitty redone house for $600,000. It was in East Nashville for $600,000.
Right.
And I'm like, good gracious. Now, I mean, I understand that people on lower incomes probably aren't looking on a standalone house, but I thought the same thing. I mean, pricing and affordability is, I mean, it's out the window.
We have people who are really struggling to make ends meet. And, we need to make sure that we're making Nashville an affordable place, not just to visit, but to live.
So, well, you know what? I'm gonna save my next line of questioning for the next time you're on with regard to Nashville, because I'm curious how deeply you've considered. I mean, you ran for Congress, right?
Yes.
And aren't all of you guys out there that are supporters of Andy Ogles proud of me that I've not asked Heidi about Andy once in this conversation?
Well
yeah, bravo to me. I mean, you're obviously called to public service. Could you ever see yourself serving in a different capacity?
It's something I might think about. I'm looking at it. I have a lot of people asking me to look at it, and I'm looking into it.
Well, you've got time, right?
Yeah, we got a few weeks.
What do you think? Back to the point on the Metro Council. There's two tracks going on. There's the legal track, where they're asking. The argument is basically we don't have the time to do this, right?
Right.
I think that's their argument. I don't think there's an argument that claims that the state doesn't have the authority to change the charter.
Oh no, I don't think so. But I'll tell you, it is really, really hard to pull that off. I mean, that
length of time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that is, just think about it.
So even if the city is successful, that would delay the change. What is their hope? For 4 years, for another cycle, or for 1 year?
I mean, yeah, I think right now we're just looking at trying to stave it off so that we can get our ducks in a row. It's a lot to dump on us at such short notice.
Well, look, overall, I appreciate you stopping by. I always appreciate the conversation. If there's anything we missed, I apologize. I'm sure the super texters will let us know. And have a great St. Patrick's Day.
I really appreciate being here. Thank you for being open to talking with me. And I love the back and forth.
Let us know if there's anything we need to know about Heidi Campbell's future anytime down the road. The policy's open door.
Thank you.
There's Senator Heidi Campbell. We'll be back in just a moment.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. 48 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, I was just giving Heidi Campbell a hug, telling her goodbye. And you know what? I don't mind saying that. I enjoyed having her with me, and I enjoy LT360. Let's talk about LT360 and everything they've done for me and everything that they can do for you. It really isn't a diet plan, right? On a diet, you go on a diet, you go off a diet. That means that it makes it more difficult once you go off a diet to continue that weight loss journey. You can lose a lot of weight on a diet plan, and you can fall off the wagon, and you can gain that weight back. Well, at LT360, theirs is a healthy way of living. They deal in holistic health and cellular health. Coach Scott taught me about this when I first met him, and I absolutely love this company. I love the program. I love Dr. Underwood, Coach Scott, and the rest of the team at LT360, and I love what they can do for you. And I would not recommend them if I didn't believe in them. All you bring to the table is the want to, and they bring the how to. And on a holistic level, they can help you get off of pharmaceutical drugs. They can help you lose the weight you've been meaning to lose. They can help you feel better on a day-to-day basis. They can help you have more energy on a day-to-day basis. And it all starts with a visit to LT360.com. That's LT360.com for our friends at LT360. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hello, how are you? I don't mean to laugh right as I come back on the radio. Some would consider that. I'm just having a great time today. I'm just having a good time. 1:55, we got Mac Morey preparing a newscast at the 2 o'clock hour. He's back in the house, so no more of that ABC garbage. Wait. I'm not supposed to say that. I've got Bell K behind the glass for one more hour before he's off for vacation.
Babies.
I also I get to talk to Bell. Have we established your Keebler Elf profile pic yet?
No, that's one of my goals for when I get back from vacation.
Okay.
So get that set up.
Because on the TV side, because part of the reason that you weren't hearing Bell for a minute was that Bell, and look, he's his own man. He gets to make his own decisions. I don't necessarily want to see my ugly mug on TV, but he says Bell has claimed that unless we want to continuously replace the cameras, we don't need him on camera because he will break them. So, I mean, whatever. I think he's a good-looking fellow.
Trying to be respectful of his company's
But
money.
Bell's trying to help us out with the cash, so we're working out a different type of dynamic for the TV side of things that's set to roll when he gets back. And anyway, at any rate, I was laughing because I was having a good time, and I was looking over at I have not looked at the super text line since before Heidi got here. Some people hate the Heidi Campbell segment. And I get it, but I disagree with it. I think it is as important as ever, which is the reason I invite her on, to have smart people, and Heidi's smart. You might not think she is, and I disagree with her on a lot of fronts. And I don't pick every battle I could while she's on. If I did, we would devolve and digress, and we would never talk about anything. But I try to pick and choose them. But I think it is as important as ever to understand where liberal individuals are coming from, where Democrats are coming from. And so that's why I choose to have her on, and she's agreeable to do it. And so I appreciate that fact. That said,
if you can't listen to your opponent's thoughts and opinions, that speaks more to your confidence in your argument than it does theirs.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so once again, I've not looked at the reaction on the super text line, but I'm excited to look at it now. The Heidi Campbell segment is exactly what talk radio should be. Keep it going, Matt. Face-to-face dialogue is our only hope for coming together as a country. Well, I appreciate that concept. Steve says the problem is she doesn't claim to be a liberal. She claims to be a conservative. What? Does she really?
No.
I don't think so.
I think she would probably call herself a fiscal conservative, but not in the way that we consider it.
Well, I asked her a question as she was leaving because I kind of alluded to the idea of, and I have no knowledge of any of this, right? But I know that the position of mayor of Nashville is one that is being looked at by a lot of different people in positions like hers. A fellow senator, Jeff Yarborough, has already announced that he's running. And so I kind of have alluded to that, and I asked her kind of directly if that's something that she would do. And she said, look, I keep all my options open. And I said, you would be the conservative in that race. And she laughed and said, well, that might be true. But that's like being the tallest midget in the circus. Can I say that?
No, you can't say circus on the radio.
Mac Morey looked at me like I just ate a bug. Mac, are the younger people accepting of the word midget anymore? No? Mac's like, I'm just doing the news, man. Oh.
It's not midget, dude. It's vertically challenged.
Oh. Mac is pointing as if you're not allowing him on the radio. You're not allowing him on the radio. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah,
we don't need to hear from you.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's no
Hush
good.
back there.
Is that no good, Mac?
No, we'll probably steer away. Yeah.
Okay.
Steer away.
All right. What should I say? Little person?
LP, baby.
Okay. That means she's the smallest LP in the circus. Is that better? Anthony says we're accepting of the term. Look, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I think we're off track here. Let's try to get back together with some semblance of normalcy on the Matt Murphy Show in the final hour of the week at St. Patrick's Day. We'll discuss a little bit of that. We'll talk with Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House. Much to discuss with him at 2:35. And coming up in just a moment, our friend Jay St. Clair offering us some legal opinions next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. A little gloomier today. Right now, 57 degrees currently in Nashville. Got a weather report coming up. 43 degrees, weather coming up in just a few minutes. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine addressed reporters on a visit to East Palestine today and gave an update on the cleanup process from last month's train derailment. Governor DeWine says even after cleanup's completed, Norfolk Southern should be expected to compensate any negative impacts from the crash, including any long-term medical issues.
Say, look, I'm worried about my son, my daughter, myself in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. That is a huge concern that people have in East Palestine. So, again, this fund has to be there.
Right now to a story here in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that a 68-year-old woman was found dead in a garage, and the husband has now been arrested in connection with her murder. The woman died from stab wounds and trauma to her body. The 80-year-old husband was later charged with first-degree murder after being arrested at a traffic stop. That investigation is still active. And some news with artificial intelligence. It's on the rise. The U.S. lawmakers are considering the possible need for new laws to regulate it, but many lawmakers are still trying to understand the technology. Here's Jay O'Brien.
Video game designer turned representative Jay Obernolte finds himself explaining what AI is to his fellow lawmakers.
Have you ever had a constituent come up to you and say, Congressman, I'm worried about losing my job to AI?
Yes.
And what do you say to them?
I say, yes, I'm worried about that too.
But AI, he says, has significant life-changing benefits too, like streamlining a patient's diagnosis in medicine. Obernolte warns not enough is known yet about how exactly AI will change our lives.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. It's the Matt Murphy Show. Thank you for being around, 2:05, and a good afternoon to you on this Friday, March 17, St. Patrick's Day. Thank you for listening online, on the app, on TuneIn, on iHeart, or on SuperTalk TV, Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm sorry, I was just in the middle of being accused. You've got to start pushing back to correct records. No offense, but you're getting a reputation for letting folks pontificate fantasy without pushback. Well, I mean, let me know. That's why the phone lines are right now open, 615-737-9986. You're invited to be a part of that conversation. Apparently, the person that said that is saying that I didn't push back on the... I don't know what I didn't push back on, but you're invited to be a part of the conversation anytime. You're welcome to call that number, as we just mentioned it. Where did Bel K go? Okay, so we're not going to do the 2 o'clock guest, I guess? I'm talking to air at this point. Okay, that's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine. I just don't know where my producer went to call my next guest, who was scheduled to be on the show at 2:05. But
he will call him right away.
I'm certain that he will. In the meantime, lots to discuss on this show. We already had Todd Warner on. We'll talk with Cameron Sexton coming up in about 30 minutes. And maybe, I'll tell you what, because of time constraints, and I've got so much to get into, and apologize profusely to him, but just tell Jay I will call him after the show, and we're just going to have to punt on it until next Friday.
We have a limit of 2 guests per show.
Well, I'm just telling you that call on him, love on him, tell him I'm sorry, and tell him just time constraints are such that we'll have to pontificate on legal issues next week.
You don't matter, and he doesn't want to talk to you anymore. Got it.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good one. That'll give us an opportunity for folks like Gracie, who's blowing me up, saying that I'm getting a reputation for allowing people to, I don't know what she said, pontificate without any pushback. If I pushed back on everything that I disagreed with Heidi Campbell about during the last 40 minutes of our conversation, we wouldn't get past the first subject. At some point, you have to allow things to lie there and have respect for the intelligence of your audience. So I will push back on that front in as much as I have every respect in the world for the people listening to this show, that they can separate fantasy from reality. Now, that's not to say that there are things that happened in Nashville before I got here that I'm not aware of. And I am receptive and open and want to soak all of that in as much as I possibly can. I don't presume to know what went down in 2018 or 2014. All I can do is read about it. All I can do is catch up in that way. And I can catch up by getting you on the phones to educate me on these matters. 615-737-9986 is the telephone number. A story that's made a good bit of national attention has come to its conclusion out of Sumner County. You may recall that there was an event scheduled at the Hendersonville Library on Saundersville Road, February the 25th, which included a former University of Kentucky women's swimmer by the name of Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines got a lot of notoriety because Riley Gaines lost to Leah, whatever his name is, Leah Thomas, who is a male identifying as a female, swimming as a female. In addition to Riley Gaines, the event had Missy Robertson of Duck Dynasty fame. I used to love Duck Dynasty. As well as Kirk Cameron. Obviously, Kirk Cameron has been an actor for many, many years, and he is a person of strong Christian faith, and he has taken his talents to try to bring more faith-based television and movie roles to the big screen. Well, the Sumner County Library Board has now voted to fire its Hendersonville Library director after accusations of treatment toward Christian actor Kirk Cameron and several others associated with the event in February at the library. Alan Morales was fired by the board on a 4-3 vote. according to the Sumner County Mayor John Isbell. The board's action to terminate Morales was related to the Kirk Cameron event, said Isbell. The event, all right, let me give you some of the background on it. The event was in conjunction with Brave Books. Cameron posted on his Facebook page about the event that said, despite the rain and the unkind pushback from one disgruntled librarian, an overflow crowd of families, mayors, county commissioners, and celebrities welcomed and joined us at the library in Hendersonville, Tennessee for singing the national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, praying and teaching faith in God and moral values to our kids. Sumner County Library Board member Joanna Daniels declined comment about the vote. This is an article from the Tennessean, by the way, and I'm doing some of this from memory because I no longer have Wi-Fi service, just for those interested. Apparently, emails obtained by the Tennessean and included in this article indicate that there was concern by Morales about how big the event was becoming. Morales wrote in an email dated February the 22nd, our invitation was sincere to read a book during our story time. We guard that time because it's for small children and not adults. We work hard at not promoting any agendas, left or right. The emails also indicate discussion about moving the event to a church in Hendersonville. I just have chosen not to say anything, Morales said. I don't want to add to all of this. I'm hoping now that they have fired me that the community can move on. There's not much point in giving my side. At the end of the day, I don't hate anybody. Gaines recalled tension building when Cameron felt Morales was speaking too loud during the promotional filming session in the library before the public was allowed in. Gaines did not know if the noise was intentional or not. Gaines also said that they became upset with some, not all, library staff during filming because of noise that she believed was excessive and intentional in order to disrupt Kirk Cameron and his group. It's not an accurate representation of Hendersonville, Gallatin, or Sumner County, said Gaines. I hate that it resulted in the termination. I don't know if it was politically driven. There were bomb threats reported, a lot of things going on leading up to the event. I don't know if it's an accurate representation of him. Police, for their part, say Hendersonville Public Library received 14 emails from the same account during a short period of time referencing death and blowing up of the building. You know, who would do that? I understand that there are crazy people in the world. Who is against Kirk Cameron? Who is against the message that he brings of love for all of his fellow man? I mean, obviously, it's a faith-based message. And if you're not a person of faith, maybe you're not very receptive to it. But are you so afraid of a faith-based message you don't want your kids around it? Or that you want to somehow strategize to prevent it? Anyway, 615-737-9986. Hopefully we gotten all that worked out on the phone front, and we'll get to you presently. We'll also get to Cameron Sexton, who's coming up in just a couple of minutes, and we'll talk to him about the abortion bill that we were speaking with Heidi Campbell about, amongst other things. Some of the other stories I'm looking at, and maybe I'm paying a little bit more attention to this because I'm closer to it, but for those of you residents out in Mount Juliet in that general area, the documents have been submitted under the code name Project Prosper to bring a Costco to Mount Juliet. You know, I was a bit surprised when I moved out in that part of the world in Wilson County that there wasn't a Sam's Club or a Costco a little bit closer by. The wife and I were just in Hendersonville last night at a Sam's Club. So plans for a new wholesale store have been submitted in Mount Juliet, seeking approval for a space that's projected to be more than 160,000 square feet. Location contains 20 acres at the southeast corner of Legacy Point Boulevard. Would someone tell me, E and I just we went down the interstate. We were on 40. And forgive me for not knowing, but I don't know if I've mentioned it or not. I'm new. Golden Gate Parkway, or Golden Bear Parkway, I guess it is, not Golden Gate. Golden Bear Parkway. That huge industrial factory or facility there right off of I-40. What is that? I don't know. We were speculating last night. In the meantime, Renee writes in and says, Matt, a good Kirk Cameron movie is fireproof. It's not overly cheesy. And it has a great message. Well, that's nice. Is that an Amazon? John says that's an Amazon facility. That would make sense. It makes sense as to why my Amazon packages get to me so quick. Oh, a bunch of you are now. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Someone said it's Dell, but a lot of you are saying that it's Amazon. And I appreciate that correspondence. Jason writes in and says, Missy Robertson talks about this on the Unashamed podcast, I believe, 2, maybe 3 episodes ago, probably 6 or 8 days ago. You can find it there. Yeah, I noted that Kirk Cameron was coming to town, but a lot of celebrities come to town. I probably should have endeavored to get him on the show because I like the work that he's done lately, obviously. I mean, I enjoyed Growing Pains growing up. Who didn't? But I've enjoyed the work that he's done lately. And like the previous texter said, some of it is not too cheesy. I did not realize that there was that great of a pushback against his appearance. It would seem that it would be a pretty innocuous appearance, although apparently the librarian involved in the situation just went nuts and as a result was ultimately fired. But yeah, this location where the Costco would be nearby the Golden Bear. I guess that's the Amazon plant there. Amazon's about a mile and a half off of I-40. I don't think that is the one you're talking about. It is clearly this is just there's a huge parking lot and a huge industrial-looking facility right off of I-40 between Lebanon and Mount Juliet. It's off Golden Bear Parkway. That's the one I'm talking about, which is apparently nearby where the new Costco would be. So if you're out in Mount Juliet and you're looking for discount items at a low price, maybe you'll get it there. Joseph is in Mount Juliet. He might have some ideas on all of this. Hey, Joseph, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon, sir. How you doing?
Man, I'm a pirate chasing booty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So all that right there, that's about 100 acres right there, and that's going to be Providence Bel Air. And I think that parking lot you're talking about is the Manheim Auto Auction that goes from Eastgate Boulevard all the way over to Golden Bear.
I mean, it's just a huge. I mean, it's just this. You can see it off the interstate. It's just a huge parking lot.
Yeah, I think that's either Manheim or Ritchie Brothers. But we're thankful to get the Costco coming in. It's been a long time coming, and Mount Juliet's got some amazing planners and amazing visionaries. It's got some really good plans for Mount Juliet, but we're looking forward to it.
Hey, are you familiar with some of the broader plans, Joseph? Because I have a question if you are.
Yes, sir.
Did they ever work out the dispute between their plans to provide a cut-through off of 70 with the sheep farmers over there?
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. The sewer is what's been the holdup right there for a long, long time. But I think in the next 12 to 24 months, all that stuff, there's too much demand for it not to. I can email you the site plan for Providence Bel Air. It's 5 times as big as the Providence and Mount Juliet right now. It's huge, and it's really already started with that legacy point right there. Where you see that big glass building going up right there on the corner of 40 and Beckwith Road right there. It's like Franklin-style development. It's nice.
Man, a lot going on out there. Joseph, thanks for the insight, and call me anytime when you have it. I appreciate that. Yeah, I noted that there's a family that's had farmland out off of 170. I saw this story a couple of months ago. I forget the name of the family, but I think they have sheep, maybe some other critters out there. And Mount Juliet wanted to eminent domain their property in an attempt to put a cut-through road between 70 and somewhere. I don't know. And they were pushing back on it, saying that they had been on that property for 7 generations and they had no intention of not fighting the idea of having eminent domain come in and take some of their property for a right-of-way. And I just didn't know where we were on it. It's kind of a more localized story, but of great importance. to those of us who live out in Mount Juliet and try to get home from time to time and are unable to do so because of all of the traffic. It is 2:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling, they're taking calls for maintenance right now on your AC unit. It is time, friends. In a couple of days, it will officially be spring. And that means more and more you'll be running the AC. And if you're running it after a lengthy time off during the winter months, then maybe you're smelling that smell. You know what I'm talking about, that smell that you don't like. But you don't know what it is, and eventually it burns itself off. That can't be good, right? Why not go ahead and call Jeff Eddy, get one of his crew out from Efficient Heating and Cooling, allow them to go through your unit from tip to stern, make sure that everything's running as efficient as it should. That's what they do, right? Efficient Heating and Cooling. And then you can get a kind of a diagnostic, and they'll speak in plain language that you can easily understand it. And friends, Jeff Eddy's never going to upsell you. He's never going to charge you more than $125 for any maintenance call on your AC, and that doesn't matter how many units you have, and oftentimes it's less than that if you just have the one. And when it comes time, and it will come time at some point, it's ready. Jeff Eddy's ready. Efficient's ready. They're a Mitsubishi Diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem as well. EfficientHVAC.net, EfficientHVAC.net, or 615-784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling.
President Biden is calling for Congress to get tougher on bank executives after failures and a murder at a condominium complex here in Nashville. That and more coming up, 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. We'll get an update on all of that from the newsroom coming up in about 5 minutes. Your calls right now, 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. My apologies to Jay St. Clair. We had originally scheduled a Fry Jay at 2 o'clock. Many of you enjoy that segment where we ask Jay legal questions and whatnot, and I was pinched, had a lot of things going on, and so we had to boot it till next week.
I told him what you said to say, and he said he didn't care if he ever spoke to you again. But no, in all seriousness, I had to call him twice because he was asleep.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm letting you know.
Oh, well.
And he's like, well, I'm going back to sleep then.
Well, I don't feel so bad then. I had already changed the time on him to make a slot for Heidi Campbell, and so I don't feel so bad now. Michael is next in Hendersonville. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hey, Matt. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thanks for calling in.
Good. Absolutely. Enjoy your show. But first time that I've called in, and when you were talking about Alan Morales, I had to call in. This man is truly a political ploy or scapegoat, and I really, really hope that you will due diligence and find out more about this. I was not at the event, but I can tell you, and would be a character witness for this wonderful man. He is very strong conservative. I've gotten to know his family ever since they moved here. Actually helped them to find their home. And you know what? One of the first things that they did was get involved in a church, and also they started a Bible study in their neighborhood. Does that sound like somebody who is a liberal in this area?
No, I mean, not at all. And I don't know the individual. You do, but why do you think the board fired him?
You know, I'm just not sure that I was not at the event. I'm just not sure what actually happened. I'm really not sure that the truth has just come out. I think that they're just using him as a scapegoat. I think that's why our mayor, Jamie Clary, is standing up for him. And actually, I feel so strongly about this, and I've lived here for 45 years, that I want to try to meet with Jamie to see what we can do so that the truth comes out.
Well, I don't, I'm not up on the story. I was a little behind it, even when the event happened. But I just noted, it was actually my wife that noted that the librarian had been fired. And so I kind of tried to look into it as to what exactly would have happened that would have led to that. And the board indicated, according to the article in the Tennessean, that the termination of Alan Morales was, quote, related to the Kirk Cameron event, to which I would say, well, what in the world could have happened that was so bad that it would have led to a firing?
Right.
I mean, I know that there was some frustration about they were trying to film and there was some disruption within the filming. I don't know what that's about.
See, I'm not sure either, and I'm not sure if that's all true or not. I just can tell you what a great person that Alan is and his whole entire family is. They moved here. They're to get with the conservative values and what we truly believe in here. He was tired of what was happening in California, and I would stand behind him and his family any day. I do know, and it may have been something with the so many people that were going to be there that they were looking at moving it. I'm not sure about all of that, what happened there, but I just know what a strong conservative and a wonderful man he is. So hope you can look into it further.
I'll do my best.
Hey, buddy, if I learn more, I will let you know as well.
Please do.
But just want to let you know what a great family they are.
Well, I appreciate you calling in and offering that perspective. Gracie is next on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. Hey, Gracie, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Heidi Campbell, next time you have her back on, I would appreciate it if you would at least be up to date on Nashville money situation, because the state comptroller had to come in and take over the Nashville budget. And during COVID lockdowns, they raised taxes on us 36% because it's not how much money Nashville brings in, it's how much money Nashville spends. They spend like a shoreman in a hooker house.
Yeah, well, it was, you said you got to start pushing back to correct records. No offense. but you, meaning me, are starting to get a reputation for letting folks pontificate fantasy without any pushback. That's what you said to me.
That's what I said to you.
Mm-hmm. And what exactly? What did I allow that was fantasy that I didn't push back? I can't know everything that happened in Nashville before I got here, and I'm sorry. I mean, I try to do my best, Gracie. I promise I do. I work about 16 hours a day on this show.
I know. I get that. And I wasn't trying to be mean.
I don't care if you're mean. You're saying I'm starting to get a reputation. I want to know with who? You?
No, everybody.
Everybody.
Your listeners, they talk.
Uh-huh.
They do.
Well, then, who? Tell me who. Just besides yourself.
I'm not going to give you specifics.
Why not?
But because I'm not going to do that. No.
I thought we were friends.
Well, we are, but.
Well, you're friendly. You're friendly enough to tell me that I'm getting a reputation. What am I getting a reputation about? You
don't push back. You allow people to just spin fantasies. Nashville has all this money, and we raise 50% of Tennessee's income, and blah 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 blah.
She never said. No, wait a minute. Hold on, Gracie. Hold on. All right. One, I'm not here to defend Heidi Campbell, and I can't push back on everything that she said. I have an expectation that you are smart enough to know when she's BSing the people and when she's not. Do you not want to hear from any Democrat at all?
Oh, I want to hear from everybody. And that's one of the things I do like about you is that you do get people to come on and talk so that constituents can hear from their elected.
I am well aware. I'm well aware that Nashville far overspends the money that they do bring in. I'm well aware of that. I also am well aware that Nashville brings a lot of money in through tourism.
Right. But you didn't mention any of that.
What exactly did you want me to say that I didn't say? Go ahead and say it so that everybody gets, because I want everybody to be aware. Go ahead.
Okay, well, when she was talking about Nashville money, why didn't you bring up the fact that the Tennessee State Comptroller took over Nashville budget?
Because I was ignorant of that fact.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry. Now you know. When she said that this was a state legislature takeover, why didn't you push back and say no? People have been asking legislature.
I'm sorry. You didn't hear me say that the Davidson County Nashville Metro Council was a function of a charter that was created by the General Assembly. You didn't hear me say that?
I didn't hear that part.
Oh, okay. Because I did say that.
Oh. Okay. Good.
I'm just being honest. I mean, if you're coming at me, I'm gonna come back at you.
That's fine. I expect you to come back at me. I'm a big girl.
It just sounds like you're mad at me for not yelling at her.
I'm 5'2" and 91 pounds.
I mean,
so I'm not a big girl, but
Gracie,
I got big shoulders.
I mean, I invited her on knowing that she was going to have these wild concepts and ideas that I disagreed with and that you disagreed with. I think it's important that we hear from those types of people. I get it. On the comptroller front, had no awareness of that. That happened in 2020, and I'm glad that you could bring me up to speed. I apologize that I don't have the mastery of Nashville politics going back to however long you've been here that you do.
Born and bred. But that's irrelevant. Just asking you to please make sure the record gets straight, because a convoluted record does not inform your listeners.
What did we misinform the listeners about?
You allowed her to spin fantasy. Clearly, she's, setting a stage to announce something else. Who knows what?
Okay. I asked you what we misinformed the public about, and you've let us know. So I've got to run. Thank you. 34 after the hour. Gracie, I love you, and I appreciate you. I just, I don't, any information you can give me about it, my ignorance is well appreciated on this radio show. Goodbye.
35 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 44 degrees and a cloudy day in Nashville. Freeze warning tonight, this morning, technically 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Sub-freezing temperatures as low as 27 are expected. And this is for all of the mid-state. And again, that starts at 1 a.m. tomorrow until 9 a.m. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. President Biden today outlined what he wants from lawmakers to prevent any bank failures from happening in the future. Here's Karen Travers.
President Biden is calling on Congress to impose tougher penalties on senior bank executives whose mismanagement led to failures like the ones at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. The president writing in a statement, quote, "No one is above the law." Mr. Biden's asking lawmakers to do three things: expand the FDIC's authority to claw back compensation, including gains from stock sales from executives at failed banks, strengthen the FDIC's authority to bar executives from holding jobs in the banking industry when their banks enter receivership, and expand the FDIC's authority to bring fines against executives of failed banks.
Got an active investigation right here in Tennessee. Channel 4 says that a man, 51-year-old Thomas Mitchell, was killed at Caldwell Condominiums in South Nashville. This is reportedly following a domestic situation. A woman says that Mitchell threatened to hurt her dog, so she called her estranged husband, 50-year-old Gary Burchett, to go get the animals. Burchett came to the condos and then began to argue with Mitchell. The report indicates that moments later, Burchett was washing his hands with water from a bottle, and then the woman was packing the car with different possessions of theirs. The woman was found at a gas station. Burchett was supposed to meet her there, but he didn't show up. Police say Burchett is driving a white F-250 Super Cab. If anyone has any information or knows anything, you're asked to call Metro Police. And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
All right, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:41. Man, oh man, packed today. Thank you for being a part of it. The Drive with Brian Wilson coming up in just a little bit. The Matt Murphy Show concludes at 3 o'clock, and then we call it a weekend. But before we do, the Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, gracious with his time, joins us just about every Friday to give a review on the activities going on in the General Assembly, and we welcome him on the Murphy Show hotline. Cameron, good afternoon. Hope you're well, sir.
Doing well. How are you, Matt?
I'm fabulous. Nothing going on at the legislature, huh?
No, it's been quiet.
Let's start here, and I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on it, but it is news when a sitting state representative, Todd Warner in this case, makes a declaration such as the one that he's made. I know that you've made comments on this. What are your thoughts on a member of the House of Representatives calling on the resignation of the lieutenant governor?
Well, I haven't heard one single senator that actually has asked the lieutenant governor to step down, and my understanding is he's talked to almost every single one of them. And so it's interesting to weigh in on a Senate issue when the senators aren't calling for anything. I will say, my understanding also is the Representative Warner has never really sat down with lieutenant governor or met with him or had any extended conversations with him at all in his tenure while he's there. So, he's entitled to his opinion. If that's what he wants to do with his time down there, that's fine. But, it's just one representative's opinion, and, there were 98 others. So,
you don't begrudge him the opinion, though, right? It's my understanding Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally had quite a bit to say when Glenn Cassida had his issues in the House.
Right, but that was from one leader to another leader, and that was Randy's thoughts. But,
okay.
If Representative Warner wants to go down that road, so be it. He's entitled to his opinion and what he wants to say. And there may be some people that agree with him, and there's probably people that disagree with him. That's the way it goes.
What's your opinion on it?
Well, I've talked to Randy about it. I've known him for a long time, and I've talked to people all across the state of Tennessee who know Randy and don't know Randy, and he comments on their stuff all the time, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram. He's always providing encouragement, and so I think that's what he was doing. He has said that he's sorry for embarrassing people for that sort of stuff on the Instagram account. And then we'll see what the Senate wants to do. This is a decision for the Senate. You mentioned when we were talking about Speaker Cassida at the time, no one took into account what the lieutenant governor said. We valued that was his opinion, but that wasn't representative of the House at that time. And so, this is an issue for the Senate, and they will work through it in the near future if they need to. But it's really their decision.
Moving on, and asked and answered, and you understand the nature of the story requires the question, and I'm genuinely curious about what you think on it as Speaker of the House, and asked and answered. That said, moving on to some legislation that's moving through, very, very complex legislation involving the issue of abortion in Tennessee. Obviously, based on the trigger law that existed and based on Dobbs v. Jackson, abortion is now illegal in the state. However, there is a provision for the exception of the life of the mother, and the devil is now being worked out in those details, is my understanding. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the trigger law was designed to say it protected the life of the mother, but it had an affirmative defense with other restrictions where it really didn't accomplish what the intent was. Even the Attorney General agreed with us on that. And then you had an Idaho case that said they overturned they modified their trigger law because of EMTALA, which is a federal standard. When someone comes into the emergency room, you have to do what you can to save their lives, and you can't have state law in contradiction of federal. And so the courts weighed in that they were in violation of EMTALA. So what we have now on the House floor is to preserve what the intent of the trigger law was, which is to save the life of the mother and the life of the baby. In emergency situations where their life is at risk. And we think we've satisfied EMTALA. And so we have that on the House floor tomorrow night, and it should be voted through.
And it's my understanding that organizations that represent right to life have, and I understand they're just a part of a lot of the different voices that you hear, but I think it's a very important part of this conversation, and they're comfortable with the legislation?
Yes. They're comfortable with the amendment that has been drafted, and they've signed off on it, as well as the governor and the AG and the Senate and the House. And so And so we're going to have that debate on Monday night. I think you'll see us pass it out and provide for those mothers. And I'll just say, when the mothers are having to go to the emergency room due to complications of the pregnancy, that is not an unwanted pregnancy. If their health is in dire strait, then the physician should be able to save their life and also do their best to save the life of the baby.
A couple of education questions, Mr. Speaker. One, I know a lot of conversations been going on surrounding federal money and so many of the strings that come along with that federal money. And I believe it's the case that you have a task force ready to go with regard to researching the possibility of rejecting federal money from the Department of Education. We've talked about it in the past. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so we're working that through the committee. We're working with the Senate. The Senate's on board with going that route, and we just think it's something that if we have the funding, then we shouldn't allow the federal government to tell us what we can do in our classroom. The interesting thing is none of their money flows into the classroom, but through Title IX, they put all things that will flow through the classroom simply because we take money or indirectly take money, as what they say in Title IX. And so it's an opportunity for us to sit down over the summer and have a group of people, all stakeholders, to look at it and say, how much influence does the federal government have? We know that they have 17 tests that they impose on our teachers in the classroom on an annual basis because we take that money. And so it's a good opportunity to take a look to see if we can go without it. I think we can. I think we can afford it, and I think we'd be better off if we didn't take the federal money.
And on the other education question is about retention. And we talk with Scott Sapicki on a regular basis about education issues on the show. And I know you're intimately familiar with the bill. Are you comfortable that there's been something of a compromise with regard to making sure that we give teachers the best opportunity in third grade and beyond, and the students and the parents the best opportunity to make the decisions that are right for them with regard to their educational opportunity in public schools?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we're trying to get to. I think what we've seen over the last 5 decades is very low proficiency rates in the third grade for reading and math, below 50%. And then we changed the standard around 2012 or 13, and it went to 37% proficiency. And so something has to be done, because by the time they get to the 8th grade, they're only about 20% proficient in reading and math. And that's a problem. That's the problem that we're having. And so we put the bill in to bring notice to the fact of how poorly we're doing, and to bring awareness to parents so that they understand where we're at as an education on their child or their student. And so that's why we funded learning loss programs in the summer and other things to put in place, which have shown tremendous growth. That's why you see the governor this year put in another $35 million on an annual basis to make those things in the summer a permanent thing based on the success that we're having. But it is something, if we want to have better education, then we have to have some accountability and make sure that when students are promoted, especially in third grade, that they're proficient. And so we're working towards that goal, allowing parents to understand where we're at, allowing teachers to do the assessments to see where the students are. And then the state takes a look at what that looks like over time.
There's also a bill, and in the minute or so that we have left, Mr. Speaker, there's a bill that would give the state more authority with regard to nominating for the Metro Nashville Airport Authority. On the heels of the Metro Council bill and its passage, there are some that are saying that the legislature is trying to take over the business of Nashville. I don't know where you are on this legislation. I would think you'd be in favor of it, considering that it includes your office giving you some of the say-so regarding who is nominated. What are your thoughts on this bill?
No, I'm in favor of that bill. Listen, the Metro Airport has now gone not just from a Nashville-Davidson County airport to a very regional airport with millions of people coming in, an additional 2 million coming in when they finish the small terminal that they're putting in place to add more airlines. And so all we've said, and we've worked with all kinds of people on the board of the current airport authority, and saying, the state would like to have the ability to have people on there too. There's an interest. And so we have funding that we have dedicated. We're working with them through small airports and big airports to fund an airport fund. We're working with them to reduce the aviation jet fuel tax that we have in our state to allow more carriers to come. And so we're working well with the Nashville Airport Authority, and I think they've done a great job over there. But we just think with the purpose and how big it's gotten and how many people it's serving, that having a little bit of state people that are appointed to that board would not be a bad thing at all.
And functionally, what would the change be? Right now, the mayor of Nashville nominates and the Metro Council approves, and this would change it to what?
Well, right now, the latest amendment is 2 from the mayor, 2 from each speaker, and 2 from the governor. That may change as we continue to go through the process. The Sports Authority has changed a little bit. That's a little different bill in the convention center. So, we're looking at different things, but all the things that we're looking at, the state has invested or have given tax breaks for or dollars for, and we're just saying we'd like to have some people on that board to make sure that our investments being used wisely.
One final question, Mr. Speaker, and I'll let you go. Cameron Sexton with us for just a moment or two more. A bill that's being characterized as a blue light special. I'm being asked by a number of people to get you to comment on this. This would give, I think, special authority for certain members of the General Assembly to be able to move more swiftly through traffic. That's my basic understanding of it. What can you say about this bill?
Well, I mean, my understanding, I know with previous speakers that they use blue lights sometimes whenever I was with them. So I don't understand what the issue is. Sometimes you do have to use blue lights. There's certain situations where you do. This bill was brought forth by Representative Russell and a senator, and it was their idea. They never discussed me when they were discussing what they wanted to do. It's like any other piece of legislation. But I don't think it changes anything right now that you currently could not do. So, I think it's a way to shore up that what you're doing is okay. But, we don't run blue lights whenever I'm running through with my team. And so, maybe other people do, other people don't. Who knows?
Cameron, thank you so much for your time. You're very gracious with it. We'll talk again next week. I appreciate you. Have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day and a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
There's Cameron Sexton. He is Speaker of the House, and he joins us for almost every Friday, and I appreciate that. It's 53 after.